he is. What he is. We see it through his actions. And all his actions represent two basic characteristics. One, they represent a power or a force. They represent this type of a force or a power, you see. In that sense, it's called a shefa. A shefa or power. And it also has a certain type of objective. It's a power concentrated to achieve a certain type of goal. That's the way the Buddhism works. Everything which exists in the world exists through Hanhagas. You see. Nothing can happen in the world, in all of existence, unless it corresponds or refers back to some Hanhaga. Number one. Number two, each Hanhaga is very specific. It can only do certain specific things. It cannot do what the other Hanhaga is supposed to do. You see. And one of the things that we try and understand is, when we look at the world, the events of the world, we try and say to ourselves, where does this come from? Which Hanhaga is it consistent with? You see. What is the function of this event? This event that's coming from now, either something good or something bad. Which Hanhaga does it refer to? Yeah. Okay. We will get to that. Essentially, how far we get this?
We have two. Yeah, but we got to the point last week where you were saying why does the soul feel uncomfortable?
Yeah. Oh, that was the way we ended off.
That's where we ended off, and you said
that's the way we ended off. Yeah. Why does the neshama feel distressed? But I just wanted a quick review on this thing, just to make sure that everyone is with me about that. This is some very critical information. Okay. Now, what we said basically, that's the basic principles of the way God operates. Through his Hanhagas. It is a shefa, it is a power, it is an influence designed to meet a specific objective. We examined the question, why did the Buddhism create the world? Why? And we said because the specific objective is to be native, to do good. You see, to give good, to be good, meaning to bestow goodness or joy on something. That was the essential thing. And we said that the Hanhaga which is responsible for that is called Hanhagas Hatava. That's what we call it. It is Hanhaga whose objective is Hatava. The second word generally indicates the objective of the Hanhaga. Now, we say to ourselves, what does Hanhagas Hatava make? Given its objective, what does it go ahead and actually do? Okay, so we said one, in order to be native, in order to be good, you have to be native to something. And you must create a recipient. Okay, so the Hanhaga, therefore, this Hanhaga must create a recipient. Okay? Two, to appreciate this soul, this recipient has to have awareness or consciousness, self-awareness. So we said that it has to have a sense of self. You can't appreciate good. Goodness or pleasure or joy is an experience. It's an experience. To experience something, you must have awareness or a sense of self. Three. What else is required to fulfill that objective? Very good. A situation or a circumstance where somehow this recipient gets to talk. Circumstance. That's called in Hebrew masav. Masav. A masav is a situation, a circumstance. Obviously, God had to create not only a recipient who is capable of what? Of feeling this goodness, but the Buddhism also had to create a masav, a situation. Now, we said that what is this masav? What is the name of this masav? And what we said was, what is the name of the masav whose essential environment is to bestow absolute joy? That environment is really Olam Haba. Olam Haba, the future world, the world to come. That is the environment which is controlled by the Hanhagas Hatava. Now, to get a clear idea of what that environment is, and it's very important, what does that mean? That means that according to Hanhagas Hatava, according to this Hanhaga and this Hanhaga only, we would have different types of beings which exist, which would have self-awareness, either one or more, who would be in a situation of experiencing Tov. Would he experience anything else? Would he experience anything else but Tov? In that type of a situation, could he experience pain or distress? No. It's not possible. Yes. Objection.
I just wait till this
Okay.
I remember a lot of prophecies in Dressing where like the angels would be crying. Like for example, during Kriyat Yam, I remember the Jews were celebrating and the angels were crying because that some of God's creations had been killed, even if they were evil. Now that means they're feeling the pain.
Who's feeling the pain?
The angels, and they're in a lot of bond.
No. They're not on the law. Everything that you see, Olam Hazeh, when we say Olam Hazeh doesn't only refer to this physical planet and this physical universe. Olam Hazeh refers to everything in both the heaven and the earth in terms of Ruchnius or Gashmius, which exists now, you see. Olam Haba is a world which does not exist yet. It doesn't exist yet. That's why it's called the future world. What kind of a world is it? It's a world where all its inhabitants, whoever they may be, whoever those fortunate people beings may be, will experience total joy. They won't know, and I think I told it last week about what the Talmud says about sticking your hand in a pocket, well, in this case, in a pocketbook, okay, and coming out with the wrong coin. Did I say that last week? Right? There's a mild discomfort, right? That will also be missing in Olam Haba. You will not even have that. Now, there is no such place. And the message you described, obviously, doesn't exist. That is not the situation. But, according to the situation of Hanhagas Hatava, right, to meet the objective of Hatava, that's what it will be. Now, if you want to know where will that be, I'm telling you, that will be in Olam Haba.
But it doesn't exist now?
No, well, are you in a state of total joy? Wait a minute. Are you in a state of total joy? No. Then it doesn't exist now. I am not. No one is. That means that there is no, that Hanhagas Hatava does not operate exclusively. Obviously, there are other things going on.
No, but you said somebody would, someone, a grandparent passes away, then they go to Olam Haba.
They don't go to Olam Haba. That's not true. Nobody goes to Olam Haba. Nobody has ever seen Olam Haba. No one goes to Olam Haba. Where they go to is a place called Gan Eden. There were reasons by Yosef Gan Eden Teim Menuchasa. They go to a place called Gan Eden. Gan Eden is not Olam Haba.
Couldn't Gan Eden really be a different time than it? It's not a dimension, it's not our time.
No, because Gan Eden is not a physical existence.
Yeah, but it's just like God doesn't have this concept of time, really. Maybe Gan Eden is something that's beyond our. It's another world.
Gan Eden is a place where the shamas go after people die.
But what's Olam Haba then?
Olam Haba does not exist. Olam Haba is a different place. What is the difference between Gan Eden and Olam Haba? We will discuss a little further up the line. But there is a distinct difference between the two. Gan Eden, at this point, is what's called the Me'ain Olam Haba. It has certain structural similarities to Olam Haba, but it is not exactly the same. It is not as great as Olam Haba, but it is like a mini Olam Haba, or a preparatory Olam Haba. It's like an appetizer before the dinner. That's what Gan Eden is. So whoever's in Gan Eden experiences joy, and only joy. But you cannot compare Gan Eden to Olam Haba. They're two different systems. But it's a mini Olam Haba. If you want to understand, it's like a mini Olam Haba. Why is that the Neshama has got to go to Gan Eden and not go to Olam Haba? The answer is because Olam Haba doesn't exist. It will not exist until the entire job of all humanity is closed. When that job is over, and the Mashiach has come, and everything is finished, that's when Olam Haba will appear, not before. So, temporarily, We got a little oasis called Gan Eden. Yes.
Yes, so we had not said another instrument that you have access to my house. When God said you have access to my house, what is that? Where are they?
If you had what?
You mean it's not because of Sesataric or Sesataric or another. You will have access to my house, share my house before you get access to them. Where are they?
You have access to where?
God's house. I figured they're great.
What's that mean?
Great shaman thing.
My host?
I mean, there was in a dream of prophecy to share my house before you.
That's not Olam Haba. I think it's referred to the spiritual realm. Yes. You see, Olam Haba is a state of existence. Everything which exists, even though we all differ in our existence, remember, we exist. What's the difference between our existence and the existence of the Neshamas or Malachim, angels, and so on? What's the difference between these existences? Remember I said the difference in existence is what? How is my existence different than that of a Malach? In what? Yes, in the substance. We have different substances and different kedusha associated with that substance. That's basically the difference. But all of us, even though we differ in substance, share the same status of existence. We are all in the same time span, you see, with respect to certain types of criteria at the same point in time. For example, on this world, there are many different types of beings, right? Even though there are many different types of beings, but they all share certain things. And the fact that all the objects in this world are physical, hence they all exist in time and space. What happens if suddenly time and space were removed? Then obviously that world would be a totally different world than this world, wouldn't it? And everything which exists in this world would exist in a different way in that world. That's what Olam Haba is. Olam Haba is not so much a world which is known as a sound, like we got a Shangri-La, where you got to go search for it. Olam Haba is a state of being which doesn't exist yet. But it's a state of being which refers to everything in existence. Us, Malachim, everything which is possible, the Neshamas, exists now in a certain way, and in Olam Haba we will exist in a different way. That way has never been established yet. That way cannot be established. It's a mode of existence, if you can say. It's a mode. That mode has never been established until this mode has in some way reached its end course and completed its objectives. When that happens, then suddenly all of existence goes into a new mode. That mode is called Olam Haba. What is the essence of that mode? Absolute joy. No evil, no discomfort, no pain. But we know that everything in existence has that. Everything in our existence experiences some pain, right? Obviously, therefore, whether it's a human or a malach or whatever the story is, you see, we're all subject to either good or negative forces, no matter who you are, no matter what substance you're made of. Hence, this world of totality is not a place of absolute good, you see. In therefore, our mode of existence is such that we relate to both good and bad. Olam Haba is a mode of existence which only relates to Tov. That's all exists. Why? Because the only Hanhaga which is operative is Hanhagas Hatava, and that's it. But the truth of the matter is, we're not dealing with Olam Haba. We're at the beginning of creation. We are before even the inception of our world itself. See? So when I see the word Olam Haba, I'm not referring to something which is yet to come. I'm referring to a scenario. You see, we're sitting down, or in a certain sense, we are observing God, if we could, in His thinking process, as He's about to create the world. That's where we're at. That's what we're doing. We are observing God. If we could do that, and if God thought the way we can understand, you see, we're trying to say, what is going on in His plan? What is His plan? That's what I'm trying to describe to you. And it's critical to understand how that thinking process takes place, how God works, how He thinks along the lines that He does. Because then we can understand what we are all about. So, the Bereshit thinks in cause Hanhagas. He acts. he behaves. He emits a power or a force which then goes ahead and does something towards a certain objective. The first thing that God thought about, the first thing that he wanted to do is to be native, to do good, to give goodness or joy to something else. In order to fulfill that objective, he let forth a power, a shefa, in order to accomplish that, an ore, a light, to accomplish that. That force is called Hanhagas Hatava. We're analyzing now what is the result of that power. Well, we're saying, first of all, that power must create a recipient. You've got to have something to enjoy the good. It's got to have self-awareness. It has to have the ability to appreciate good. And finally, it has to have a situation, you see, where this good can be dispensed. Now, if you ask me what type of situation is, I will tell you, it is the type of situation which we will someday experience in Olam Haba, but it has not been created. You see. So let me erase this. This is a theoretical evaluation. Yes.
If Olam Haba is something that doesn't yet exist, but if it is not like the world we are in, then would it, now how much is Sufa, or however you pronounce it, not exist
In that world, it doesn't. You're right.
Then why would there be a problem?
Right. You've asked that last week, and we're going to take that up this week. And if I remember, you're the one that asked, weren't you the one that said, where does it come from?
Yeah, I was questioning it. I don't really think
I think you asked the last week, which is very good, and we're going to take it up this week. Right. In this point, there is no nominal Sufa at this point. Now, before I go into that, I just want to simply summarize what I said last week with respect to this nominal Sufa. This is what Hanhagas Hatava is. This is our subjective. Now, what happens? What happens? Okay, let's look at the creation. The Buddhism creates the neshama, and that neshama has the ability of self-awareness. And the Buddhism then takes the neshama and puts it in this masa, this situation. The neshama is now in this situation, whatever that situation is, and it's now really feeling good. It feels this intense joy. Okay? I am not describing what this joy is about. That's the next year. It's feeling some intense form of joy which the Buddhism has for us. Everything is nice, right? The Buddhism has what he wants. Hanhagas met its objective. The neshama is happy. Suddenly, the neshama starts screaming, I don't want this place. I don't want this. I can't handle this. So the Buddhism turns around and says, what's the matter? You know, it's an incredible situation. What are you complaining about? So the neshama says, this is an incredible situation. There's no question about it, and I really feel good. But the truth of the matter is, I can't sit here and just let you bestow goodness on me continuously. I can't do it. I can't do it and basically feel a sense of myself. I can't. In some way, I have to object. I must resist. It's causing me the discomfort. I can't just sit here and take what you have to give and take and take and take. I can't do that. You see, if I do that, in some way, my value, the value I place on myself is lowered. I lose what we call self-esteem or self-valuation. You see, myself feels threatened. You see, that's what it says in Buddhism. Which means that there exists a feature in the personality of the neshama, if we can speak it that way, which feels negative or distressed in the situation of toll. Why? Because it cannot take something for nothing. It can't. The neshama says, I can't take it unless I earn it. If I in some way produce, if I create this, and I'm responsible for it, then I can handle it. But I can't just take it as a gift. I can't take gifts. Constant gift, you can take one gift, two gifts. But imagine if your entire life was a gift. Imagine if everything about your life was a gift. Everything. From the moment you woke up to the moment you went to sleep, everything was a gift. And somebody's there who's giving you the gift as a constant reminder. Oh, you want to eat? Here, take it. You want to go somewhere else? Let me drive you around. You want this? Let me give you this. You want clothes? Oh, let me put on this coat for you. Imagine there's someone like that with you constantly 24 hours a day. And then when you go to sleep, right, this person sits down by your bedside and simply waits till the morning to serve you again. Can you imagine that? As soon as you get up, oh, let me dress you. Let me take you here. Let me do this. Constantly. After a while, see, let's do me a favor. Get lost. You know, I can't handle it. I lose my independence. I just feel totally subservient to you. I can't just take from you constantly and be absolutely dependent. I lose my whole sense of self-perspective. Right?
That's what we do.
Yes.
With that death.
Cool. No, that's what I'm saying. You don't. You.
The life is given to you. It's a gift. You have no choice of that. It's something that's given.
Life is given to you, but wait. What I'm saying is the following: is that the neshama, in put in that situation, does not stand for it. It can no longer stand for it than anyone else in the situation I've described. The neshama says to the Ribono Shel Olam, I feel distressed. That is a feature of the neshama. Where does that feature come from? We will deal with that shortly. But except that feature is called Nama de Supa. You see, it's a very important word to remember. Nahama means bread. Dikasupa means of shame. Bread of shame. If you go over to a poor person, and you give him a handout, and you constantly give him a handout, after a while, he can't look you in the face. It's hard for him to look you in the face. That's why it's called the bread of shame. The metaphor is a poor person accepting bread on a continuous basis. After a while, she's ashamed to look you in the face by these constant gifts. That is the feature of the neshama, which does not allow this matter to truly give it the goodness. Okay. So what does the Ribono Shel Olam do? The Ribono Shel Olam says, okay, what we'll do, we'll change the situation. We'll change it. Obviously, I just can't give you this situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do certain things else. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create, okay, a new situation. Okay, but this situation will not be a place where you're going to get this toll. It's going to be a situation where you're going to be able to earn that toll. You see. So the essence of that situation is called avoda. Avoda means service or effort. You see. This will be a situation where you're going to actually have to earn this thing. You see. We're going to call the situation, this is called situation 1. This is situation sub 2. It is a different situation. It is a situation of trial. It is a situation of effort, you see, of work. Now, once the Ribono Shel Olam has created the situation, he has to do something else. He has to now look at what you've done and he has to evaluate it. And he has to see whether or not you've earned what you've done. So the Ribono Shel Olam therefore has to create an evaluation process. He has to go through now a process of evaluation. He's got to look at you, and he's got to look at the neshama, and he's got to say, well, let's see. What did you do? And then finally, if you pass the evaluation, if you find it acceptable, then he has to create two situations. He must create another situation. You see, if you do pass, if you have earned this toll, then he must create a situation for, but he doesn't have to create it anew. That's really part of this situation, you see. Once you pass the evaluation, you now can go here. But what happens if you do not earn what you're supposed to? Then he must create situation 3. Situation 3 is a place where the neshamas go that have not earned what they should have earned. That's situation 3. Now, what is the dynamics of this process? Like this. First, you're put into situation, 2, which is the situation of work or effort. And depending on the evaluation process, right, you can either go to situation 1, which is a place of toll, or situation 3, you see. You see how that works? Now that's a whole different set of scenario, isn't it? You see. In other words, the Buddhism has to create a whole new different situation. The Buddhism has to create these three things which never existed in this scheme. In this scheme, which is simply to give tolls, according to the Hanhagas Hatava, you see. These were the three things which the Buddhism created in order to fulfill our Hatava. But as soon as the Neshama jumped up and said, I can't handle this, the Buddhism had to say, well, okay, let's make another bunch of stuff. Now, in order to make this other bunch of stuff, obviously the Buddhism had to act in a different way. Which means he had to create a new Hanhaga, you see. If the Hanhagas Hatava created these three, which Hanhaga creates these three? Who knows what that Hanhaga is called? Yes. Very good. The Hanhaga which created this situation here is the Hanhagas Hamishpat. Right. Do you see why it's called Hanhagas Hamishpat? What does the word Mishpat mean? Mishpat means justice. Let's see. Why? Because Mishpat refers to what key aspect of this system? True. Evaluation. The evaluative process will determine whether or not you have done your job or not. That's the concept of justice, or din. We have to see whether or not you're worthy or not. We have to see whether or not you've passed, whether or not you've accomplished your objective. That is the essence of din, or mishpat. That's why the Hanhaga, which is responsible for creating this type of a situation, is called the Hanhagas Hamishpat. You see. Now, the Hanhagas Hamishpat, was the Hanhagas Hamishpat responsible for creating the recipient? Or self-awareness? Or the situation of good? No. Which Hanhaga was responsible for that? Yes. Right. But because of the problem of Namlik Sufa, the Buddhism created a new Hanhaga, which had to create these three things according to that structure, you see, in order to fulfill the objective of the Hatava. Now, what is the relationship of the two Hanhagas, really? What is the relationship? Essentially, the Hanhagas Hamishpat is the Hanhagas Hatava with a condition. That's all it is, really. You see. In other words, does that mean that the Hanhagas Hatava is no longer operative? No, it's still operative. Because it's the Hanhagas Hatava which is making this part, you see. Except that the Hanhagas Hamishpat has added a feature. The feature which is added is the condition of Mishpat. The condition of what? That you must earn your tolls. You must get into Olam Haba on your shoulders, on your efforts. This is not a free ride. You see what I'm saying? That's what the Hanhagas Hamishpat. So in other words, the Hanhagas Hamishpat really contains the Hanhagas Hatava within it. You see? Every aspect of the Hanhagas Hatava is in the Hanhagas Hamishpat. Understand this clearly. These are not two separate, independent Hanhagas. They are not. One is built on the other. The foundation is the Hanhagas Hatava. That's what started, and that's what created the critical features. The problem of Namlik Sufa, you see, forced the creation of another Hanhaga, you see, which meant that the Hanhagas Hatava would now exist conditionally, you see. And all those items which are needed for the toll to be manifest in the Hanhagas Hatava now must pass through the conditional element set up by the Hanhagas Hamishpat. There's got to be a situation for Avoda, you've got a situation to earn it, you've got to be evaluated, and then, and only then, could you go into the final situation which you should have gone to before. Where is this place called the situation of Avoda? Where is this place? What? Olam Hazeh. What is Olam Hazeh? Olam Hazeh is not this only physical world. Olam Hazeh refers to, remember, a mode of reality. Olam Hazeh is this situation now for everything. We are all in Olam Hazeh. You, me, Malachim, Neshamas, and so on. Except that normally Olam Hazeh is referred to, most people when they say Olam Hazeh, they generally refer to as the physical world. You see. That's the normal thing. But that's inaccurate. That's why all of you think that when a person dies and he leaves Olam Hazeh, where is he gone? To Olam Haba. That's the logic, that's what you have. But that's not true. Nobody goes to Olam Haba because the Olam Haba doesn't exist. Well, if Olam Haba doesn't exist, so where are you going? Well, you're not going anywhere. You're staying in Olam Hazeh, except you're going in a different phase of Olam Hazeh. Gan Eden, which is where the Shabbos go after they die. It's simply a different phase of Olam Hazeh. But it's all Olam Hazeh. Why? Because we are all in the phase of existence which refers to our Avodah, you see. Even though people who die are no longer involved in our Avodah, so to speak, in the real way, but they are still involved in processes which must take place before this ultimate situation can arise. Like Gehenna. There are processes which the neshamas are involved in, certain neshamas are involved in, which must take place before Olam Haba. Olam Haba is a place where there will be nothing but good. Nothing but good. This world and the Shemayim in heaven has both good and evil in it. Even the Shemayim. What evil? Gehenna. You all know what Gehenna is? Have you all heard of it? Where is Gehenna? Is Gehenna on the planet Earth? No. Gehenna is obviously a spiritual locality of some sort. It's a spiritual state, a spiritual zone with certain objectives, you see. Where is that? That's now. It exists concurrently with us. Well, if that's true, can this be Olam Haba? No. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why what I'm saying is that there is no such thing as Olam Haba yet. We all exist now in Olam Hazeh. What I'm trying to give you understanding is what the real meaning of Olam Hazeh is, not what the populist usage of the term. I'm giving you the depth view of it, what it really means. Olam Hazeh refers to a state or mode of existence. And that mode of existence refers to a situation which is involved in processes, you see. Processes which will ultimately bring us towards an ultimate objective. As long as we are involved in these dynamic processes, we are not at the point of destination yet, you see. And it doesn't matter if these processes exist in the physical world or they exist in the spiritual world. We are all involved in these dynamic processes. We have not reached our destination. No one has reached his destination, you see. What you all thought was Olam Haba is actually Gan Eden. That's all. It's a mini Olam Haba or a temporary Olam Haba before its time. But it is not Olam Haba. Olam Haba is an entirely different thing. What is Olam Haba? In future Shurim we will have a very clear grasp of what Olam Haba is and will look like. You see. Yes. Gehenna is a specific spiritual location which has certain objectives. The objectives there obviously have to do with removing the sins that a person has acquired over here. See? How it does that and exactly what circumstances does this is a future discussion, but that's essentially what it is. But it's involved with pain. Well, I don't like to do that because the Christians view hell. I don't like to do it because, hell is damnation. When you see what goes on in hell, you see all these people in eternal burning of some ridiculous thing, that's absurd. The neshamas don't burn. You know what Gehenna is? I'll tell you what Gehenna is. Okay. I'll tell you what Gehenna is. Now, I will tell you exactly what will happen. Whoever goes to Gehenna, I will tell you exactly what it is. Okay? This is what it is. I have before me a choice to do either mitzvah or sin. Right? Let's say. Let's say an individual has in front of him to do a mitzvah or sin. For example, he's walking and he's very hungry. And he walks along the street and he's very hungry and he sees this restaurant. And this restaurant has incredible aromas of Chinese food. He's Jewish. And he's a Jewish Shemayim. He knows he's not supposed to go to a restaurant and eat Chinese food. But he's very hungry. And he says to himself, nobody's looking. He goes inside, sits down, and he orders whatever he orders. I'm not familiar with that particular menu, but he orders whatever he orders. Okay. Eats it, walks out. Now, fine. What happened? What happened to the guy? Nothing. On the contrary, the guy has a lot of nutrition in his digestive system, right? No. Did God see it? Yes. But what happened to this person? Nothing happened. So you think nothing happened. What has happened is, because of the fact that he's taken a tray of food, his neshama has been seriously affected. Invisibly, that you cannot see, the neshama has taken down into a cherish what's called a tumor, or a scab on it. He's got a neshama with a scar. It's a real scar. You can't see it, you see. If it was on your body, you'd feel it. But what happened is, while eating what he did, he's produced a wound in the neshama, and there's a scar right on top of it, you see, in a certain location of the neshama. Now, so what? What does that do? Well, to you it does nothing. But that scar on the neshama makes the neshama unable to take down the kedusha which it needs to be, or to be in a complete state. It can't survive, you see, because a scab, in a sense, over it, scar over it, blocks its ability to absorb tremendous kedusha in order to invigorate it and give it its life, its life force. It can't do it. There's a part of it which is blocked. Now, you're walking around, you don't feel this at all. You see, you're very satisfied. You're full and so on. You don't feel it at all. Does it come out? Yes, it does come out. Why? How? Because what happens is that the neshama now has a scab on it, and it cannot receive the full kedusha that it should. It will begin to affect your thinking, except you won't know it. So that when you come down to the next food, or another sin, or another thing, suddenly it's much easier to do it. Because your neshama has been weakened, but it's invisible, so you don't know. So what happens is, you find yourself slowly getting into a situation where literally your neshama begins to corrode. You can't see it. If the Buddha suddenly took your neshama out and said, remember we said once that you can do it and you still be alive, and he showed it to you, you would be horrified at what you just did. You see? Now, what does that have to do with Gehenna? Very simple. What the Buddha then does is take you and your neshama together. You see? And after a person dies, person's neshama, and he puts him in the Gehenna. What does the neshama do in Gehenna? It eats Chinese food. No. It eats Chinese food. I'm not being facetious. It literally does. Except it doesn't literally eat Chinese food the way we eat it. It eats the spiritual equivalent to whatever that activity is called of eating traces. But it eats it as a neshama. It is a spiritual activity. You hear? It's not putting the food in your mouth. However the neshama absorbs, but it absorbs trace. The spiritual correspondence of trace, you see. Now, what's the big deal? Because when the neshama has to eat trace, it hurts. It feels it. Because the neshama says, what am I doing this? I'm Kaiva Kedusha. I should be absorbing Kedusha, not eating Tumah. If I shove Tumah down the mouth of a neshama, what happens? It becomes incredibly sick. You see, that's what Gehenna is. Gehenna is what happens. Gehenna is nothing more than a replication of what you did here, but in a situation when you have full consciousness and full awareness of the damage you did. Hence, with that full awareness, you feel the full recoil or distance from the Kedusha and the full pain that results from it. That is Gehenna. You see, Gehenna, Mishpat, evaluation. Midah keneged midah. As you do here, that's what they do to you here. Literally. You eat Chinese food down here, you can eat it up there. Except up there, the Chinese restaurant is not in Gan Eden. The Chinese restaurant, Li Fun Young, happens to be in Gehenna, you see. And that stuff hurts, creates incredible ulcers to the stomach of an neshama. But you're forced to go in, you're forced to sit down, and the plate is put in front of the neshama, and it's forced to eat. And if you don't want to eat, it's IV. You see what I'm saying? That's what Gehenna is. Interesting. That's really what it is. If you realize what Gehenna was, you'd be much more careful of what you're doing down here. Really. Because you wouldn't want to replicate that event again. Because then you'll know what you've done. And then you'll really feel the pain, the real pain, you see, of what it is. Now, why is that done? Why is the neshama put through that process? To remove its scars. Because what happens is, when you eat while you're alive as a ghost, as a person, you create scars on the neshama. But if the neshama does that, then what happens is the scars disappear. By replicating what you've done and experiencing again the cheshach, the darkness and the pain that the neshama must have, the scar disappears.
Completely?
Completely.
And then can the neshama go to Olam Haba?
Yes. That is its function. Then the neshama can go to Olam Haba. That's exactly the purpose. Exactly. Then, if you don't know you're sinning, then the scar is much smaller. You see, the knowledge of a sin is part and process of the mechanism of the sin itself. When the Baruch says, if you do a sin, the assumption is that you have full awareness. If you don't have full awareness, then the consequence is much smaller. If a person, for example, is not from, never born from, his parents are not from, and whatever the story is, and he goes into a Chinese restaurant and eats and he's Jewish, he has no idea that what he's doing is wrong. What is the scar on his neshama? Almost minuscule, if there is one. Because he has no choice, he has no free will. He does not know what he's doing is wrong. Is there a scar? To some degree, there is a manifestation, and there are reasons for that. But it is almost minuscule. What happens is if a person becomes a Baal Tshuva and starts learning, and let's say he's a half Baal Tshuva, so he's in the process of learning and he's still eating Chinese food, what happens then? Then the scar is not as strong as it would be if he would be a finished Jew, in a sense. The scar is a half scar effort.
But if you know you shouldn't eat it.
If you know you shouldn't eat it, and you walk into it, it depends. The Baruch can read the mind of a person and knows exactly what he's responsible for and what he's not. If he sees this guy just became a Baal Tshuva and the person is 35 years old and this person has 20 years of experience with Chinese food, the Baruch does not expect him all of a sudden to just whisk it all away, you see. If there's a backsliding and he eats the Chinese food, the Baruch understands. What does it mean he understands? It means that the scar is left. There's an actual reality to his understanding. You see what I'm saying? Din has a reality. Mishpat has a reality. It is the reality of the neshama. It's not a fictitious event. You see. So it depends, you see. But if the person's been a Baal Tshuva a year or two, or if the person has become a Baal Tshuva in a very serious way and has had very good Rabbeim, or whatever the story is, or the person has been in contact with very heavy ruchnias, and then he goes out and does that, he's in big trouble. Okay, that's it. I think we all understand what I'm saying. Yes. It all depends. But yeah, you see, what is the full extent of culpability? Each person is different. Nobody can be the judge of any one person. We don't know, you see. What would be liable for one person could be innocent for another. You see what I'm saying? Every person is different in terms of his background, his personality, his intelligence, his knowledge of Torah, the spiritual kochos that he was born with at birth, that he was given at birth. Everyone is different in all these ways. His ultimate objective, and so on and so forth. Hence, no one can evaluate a person. This evaluation process can only be conducted by the Baruch himself, essentially. Because it's only the Baruch that knows every nuance, every variable, and he can take into account every one of these things, you see. And he does take into account. But, essentially, his evaluation is actually manifest in the neshama itself, you see. It's what's called a phenomenological reality. A chet, or a sin, is not a transgression in some nebulous or fictitious way. It is a reality. Let me give you an important example since we're on this topic. In the New York State Penal Code, there's certain laws about theft and burglary. You can't walk over and take someone else's object. A person can't go over and take a person's car. That's called larceny or grand larceny or whatever the story is. Okay. There's a law on the books like that. What happens if a person does that? Drives the car away? What? Depends. If they catch the guy, he's thrown in jail. What happens if they don't catch the guy? say they don't kiss the guy. The guy gets away. What happens? Nothing. The guy got away. In other words, the only effect of this transgression is if he's caught. If he's not caught, there's no effect, there's no consequence. There's no negative consequence. Okay, this is the law of New York State. Now, the Torah. The Torah says those signals, thou shalt not steal. That's what it says. Again, we have the case of a Jew. He comes over, he's from a Jew. Comes over. The reason why I say it's from a Jew, because obviously he's the one who's really culpable. The other, well, the truth of the matter is, with regard to theft, every Jew is culpable, whether he's from or not. In essence, she goes over, takes an object, steals it, and runs away. He's not caught. Nothing happens. Is that true? No. Something happened. He's got a scar on his neshama. You see? The mitzvah of lo signal is totally different than the New York State law, thou shalt not commit larceny. You see? If the New York State law was written, thou shalt not commit grand larceny, and the Torah says, thou shalt not steal, what? They look like the same description. It looks like the same statement, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It looks like the same statement, number one. Okay, that's number one. And number two, if what? If the guy gets away with it, well, it looks like he got away with it. The answer is there's a very big difference. Because the legal system that we have, essentially, by the nations of the world and by mankind, are conventional systems. We create our laws and we agree to uphold the laws and execute them. So the laws, the reality of those laws, is no greater than the force, the way, the power in which we have to enforce it. It's no greater than that. But the reality of the laws of Torah has nothing to do with the ability of mankind to enforce it. It has the ability of God to enforce it. But God is reality. Understand this. The mitzvahs of the Torah, all of them, whether they refer to activities between man and man or between man and God, are not legalisms, they're not rituals, they're not ceremonies. These are what these things are when man creates them. In man-made legal systems, in man-made religions, or whatever have you, all these things are conventional items and based on man. But in the Torah, when the Torah says the tithe mitzvah, the 606 commandments, when the Torah says you have to keep Shabbos, that's not a ritual, that's not a ceremony. You see, when the Buddhism says, heed the Shabbos, you see, the Buddhism is saying is if you don't, I will take it out on your being. I will account it to your reality. You see, for example, a person walks to the edge of a precipice and jumps off. What happens? He dies. He dies. Well, why should he die? Why can't he simply negate the law of gravity? Because gravity is a reality. A person opens up a bottle of antifreeze and drinks it. He dies. Why? It's antifreeze. It's only a liquid. What's the antifreeze in water? Because obviously antifreeze has a different chemical composition. It is a different reality. Hence it kills. Mitzvahs kill. You don't see it. They literally kill. But mitzvahs also give life. You see, that's the difference. The laws of men do not give life, and they do not give death. They are powerless to give either. You see, if you're caught, you're caught. It's not. But the mitzvahs of the Torah are God-given, and God is the essence of existence of reality. Hence, the tithe mitzvah is nothing more than a description of the consequence of your reality, either if you transgress or if you observe it. Hence, the mitzvah has the power to kill, or has the power to give life. And that choice is in your hands. It's a very serious thing what I'm saying. Very serious. You see, the next time you come up against some situation and you're thinking of going against it, don't fool yourself and say, wait a minute, so I don't keep this. Well, that's a ritual. It's cute, but that's all, you know? It's not. It's a real situation. It's a tzivur Hashem. It's a commandment of God. A commandment of God is a law of reality, just like gravity. Gravity is a commandment of God. Did you know that? It is. When God created the world and He said, let there be a world and let there be a universe, He said, let there be a force of gravity. The only difference is that you've never heard this commandment, you see. When a person jumps off a cliff, you see, it doesn't say thou shalt fall down. There's no such commandment as if you jump off a cliff, thou shalt fall. There's not the commandment. That commandment is embedded in nature. So there's no necessity for the commandment. You see. So you think when the Moshe says to keep Shabbos and Tzveifus and everything else, you think that that's not embedded in everything. That's also, no. It is embedded in nature, but it's embedded in the reality which you cannot observe. It's embedded in a spiritual reality. And even though you cannot observe it now directly, but it will influence your life now. It will. And eventually, someday, you will feel that reality. And you will have to deal with that reality. Just like the man who jumps off the cliff has to deal with the reality of falling now to the edge or down to the bottom. That's the difference between the laws of the Torah and the laws of man. Yes?
How does this differ or relate to the action-reaction principle that we experience while we are alive?
It relates to that.
Is that the same?
It's the same thing. The reason why there's an action-reaction principle is because of that. Because there's a reality. When you transgress, when you do a chait, when you go against something which the Banasam said, willfully, knowingly, by choice, you see, what it's tends to do is you create a whole series of events or a series of consequences which first appear in your neshama and then appear in the accusing and defending angels in the Shemayim and then appear in your life. Because suddenly you find yourself in hot water, your mother suddenly turns bad. Why? Where did that come from? You see, it's a boomerang effect. Now I can't go into this entire boomerang effect in one shot. We will go into this, you see. But it's all a reality. It's the reality of the Neshamas. It's the reality of God. It's the reality of that existence. You see, it really is, and it will affect you even in this life. Don't think you have to wait for Gehenna, you see, to remove those scars. The punishment does not wait. The punishment starts getting rid of the scars now. That's why people are born with sickness, and that's why children die, and that's why people go through all kinds of sorrows and problems. Why? Because he's involved in the process of removing scars. Except that you have a choice. Either the Baruch will remove scars now while you live, or he will remove scars after you're dead. In either cases, he will remove scars. He must remove scars. If he doesn't, you can never get to Ilam Haba. You cannot, because the scars on the neshama will block its ability to receive the Torah that the Baruch has. The Baruch therefore must take away those scars. Yes.
Boomerang effect. Suppose something negative on your reality plus someone else. You look at that as a passive receiver and look at what did you do.
Yes.
You didn't cause it per se. You were there.
Yes.
That's like reflecting back on what.
I'll give you this thing. Let me just. What am I talking about in an actual sense? It takes a lot of courage. You don't realize it. It takes a lot of courage to say it right, and to say it clearly, and to say it with a clear apprehension of what it means to your life. It does. It has to be presented in this way. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, a person has to show gets very sick. Let's say he develops a very serious illness. Now, a person doesn't develop a serious illness for no reason at all. This serious illness obviously has to do with the scars that he's developed, and the Baruch has to remove those scars on the neshama, and he does it by giving the person sickness. Now, when a person gets sick, he doesn't say to himself, well, why am I sick? What did I do to get sick? He says, I got sick because I went out and I didn't watch myself, I ate the wrong food, or whatever the story is, and I developed this ailment, no matter what it is. But the reason is that he doesn't see it is because the actual cause of the sickness and the sickness are disconnected. You see, all he sees is the effect, the fact that he's sick. And the actual cause is very, very far away from himself, because he doesn't see any scars, he sees no boomerang effect, he sees nothing, you see. But there was once a time when you could literally see a physical effect right away for things that you did. We cannot see it anymore. There's something in the Torah called saras. I don't know if you've heard the term, nega saras. Has anyone ever heard that term, a Masorah? Has anyone ever heard that term, a Masorah? says.
Well, so they had
No, it's not from the word soros. No, because that's an item. This root, Misora, it comes from the word soras, not soros. It's a different root. No, yeah, what's it? No, it's a whole different. Has anyone ever seen that? Well, you know what a Masora is? Well, there are two sentences in the Torah which only concentrate on a Masora. What is a Masora? Masora, people thought or think that Masora is leprosy. And they think that there are people, because the Torah talks about people who suddenly get diseases on the skin, you see. And the Torah says that you have to put these people from outside the camp, you see. So what has happened is that through time, people have thought that Masora refers to a person who has leprosy or Hansen disease. Now, this has nothing to do with it. What it was is, in those days, no more, until the destruction of the first temple, if a person spoke Lashon Hara, what happened is, very interesting what happened. If he spoke Lashon Hara, he would look at his skin and suddenly it would turn white. Snow white. Miriam. Right. Remember? Miriam spoke Lashon Hara against her brother Moshe, and she became the Masora. So she had to be sent from outside the camp, and they had to wait for 7 days. She had to be locked up, not locked up, with quarantine in a sense. You see? That's what happened to Miriam. What happened? Because in those days, if you spoke Lashon Hara continuously, really continuously, what happens is your skin will begin to turn white. That's called a nega. That person is called Masora. If that thing lasted for a certain amount of time and developed certain ways, then they would have to tell you have to leave the camp of Israel and live outside. Alienated from the public. Why? Because that disease, and what came from the sin of Lashon Hara. It came from the sin of Lashon Hara. And it's Mida Keneged Mida. Just like with your Lashon Hara. You know what Lashon Hara is? Evil talk, slander, calumny. Just like you attempted to destroy a person's life with your evil talk and separate him, destroy his honor and his reputation, and hence make him a pariah among his friends, the Banishim says, I will make you a pariah. You will look like a freak, but you're going to look like a freak. You're going to look like the man who looks like a ghost, you see, and you're going to have to be sent outside of the Machaneh, you see, where everyone will shun you. You see that? Now, Masora was an actual skin discoloration. Your skin literally turns snow white, and you really look like a freak. You see, I don't care what your pigment is. No matter what it is, your skin became totally white. You see, in that sense. That's a physical thing. Well, where did that come from? The answer is, it came from nothing physical. It came from the neshama directly. Masora, or Soras, which is the other way of saying it, was the only disease ever known by man, which was a direct reflection of the scar on the neshama. As soon as the neshama has a scar of Lashon Hara, because of the connection of the neshama to the guf, the way it's connected, that scar would literally, instantly manifest itself on the skin. It was a direct connection. Literally. There was nothing intervening. When a person becomes sick physically, how does he become sick? How? Either something in the system breaks down, there's a structural deterioration, or else there's a microbe, an alien, for example, a virus or bacteria or a parasite enters in the system. So if you say, well, why are you sick? Well, I'm sick because I have a bacteria in my system. I got a germ. That's why, you see. That seems to be the immediate cause. But the real cause was the hate that he did. So the Virgin sent a bunch of germs on top of him in a sense, right? And that's why he became sick. So the connection between the sickness and the sin is not clearly seen, because in between there's a bunch of microbes filling in the spot. You see what I'm saying? But there was once a time when there was no connection, intermediate. It was direct. As soon as a person did the sin on a continuous basis, he would begin to develop this kind of a thing. And if he stopped in time, he would be able to reverse its process. You see? It would go away. You see? But it came directly from the chait on the neshama itself. Why is it that they used to feel that and we didn't feel it? We no longer have Taras. Taras went out of existence from the destruction of the first temple. Why? Why did it go out of existence? The law of Matzura, which the Torah spends 2 sedras on, you see, does not exist today. You have never seen, nor will you ever see a Matzura. Not in this life. You see? Why? Why are there no longer any Masoras? Why don't you think?
Maybe in a sense, the neshama, because it got sick immediately, it didn't scar. It had to take for another time.
Those neshama scars right away also. Every neshama scars instantly upon Chet.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if I do a sin today,
why don't we see it on your skin? If you say what you must know.
My neshama has to go through another world, another.
Does your neshama have a scar? If you would say Lana Rosh Hashanah, would your neshama develop scars?
Yeah, but I won't be able to get rid of it until later on. Because I won't be able to see it. But if I was in those days, Miriam, she got survived. The scar was removed immediately.
No, the scar was removed. The scar was reflected. She removed it by doing tshuva.
You can remove scars in this world too, though, can't you? Can we? Sure.
Well, why don't you show your scars? Why don't you show the scar of Rosh Hashanah? If the scar of Rosh Hashanah is Saras, why does it appear?
Well, if you can't see it, maybe because it's harder. If you can't see it, it's harder to want to choose it.
No, it has nothing to do with tshuva or not. Why is it that we do not see the consequence? Why don't we see the pathological manifestation of the chet? What? Who? Because our neshamas are not that big anymore. That's why. Remember I spoke on the Chanukah Shir and so on about the change? That the neshamas have gone down, that the GN ratio, remember I spoke about that? In order to have a scar on the neshama, visible on the body, your neshama has to be very powerful, very strong. It has to have tremendous kedusha, you see, in order for that to take place. If your neshama is small and no longer has that power, then even though it has a scar, it can no longer show it on the body. Hence the reason why we no longer experience that is because the neshamas has gone down. Correct. What Brenda said is absolutely correct. Neshamas have gone down. Prophecy is lost. Saras only existed when they were prophets. That's when they existed. Because when they were prophets, they were very great souls. They were neshamas that were able to bring down big things. Were able to connect with very high force of ruchnius. It does not exist anymore. Hence, if we lose the prophecy, we also lose the saras. We lose it all. We do not have the neshama to experience either the good or the bad at that level. You see. Why do I mention this? Because what I'm saying is that if we would experience saras, we would then have the benefit of seeing a skull on the neshama now. We don't have that anymore. You see. So you think that you can all do chatoyim and not be visible, and so on. That's true now. But there was once a time, had you lived 2,000 years ago, or rather, had you lived 2,500 years ago, or 3,000 years ago, it would have been very visible, but only with respect to the chait of Lashon Hara, not with respect to any of the chatoyim. That one chait came out on the skin as a skin discoloration, not any others. You see. Now wait a minute. I don't want to stop the shir on a bad note. Just like there is a scar on the production of a chait, what does the mitzvah do? Wait a minute. You see, why be pessimistic over here? If that's what a chait does, if that's what a sin does, what does the mitzvah do? Well, if the neshama produces a scar, the mitzvah produces very powerful neshamas. You see, when the neshama becomes inordinately able to absorb kedusha and light, it's like a workout session. You see. It's like an aerobic session. It's like your cardiovascular system is at peak. You see. That's what your neshama looks like. Hence it has an incredible ability to go into that situation called Olam Haba. And it can really benefit from it. You see. That's what you do to your neshama when you do a mitzvah. You see. I don't want to fight new people or intimidate new people. You see. Only. You see. You've got to look at the other side as well. The other side is the incredible strength and power which you give to your neshama. And remember what I said last time? What power is that? Well, given enough power, and you can pull down Ruach HaKodesh, you can literally connect with higher worlds, and literally become aware or conscious, you see, of the information or the events which exist at that higher plane. How do you do that? When your neshama becomes stronger. That's how you do it. That's the reward of a mitzvah. You see. Hence the choice is yours. What does all this have to do with what we're saying? That's the concept of mishpat, the concept of evaluation. These are the results of the evaluative process. You determine what the evaluation will be. phenomenologically, on your neshama, it is a readout of what you've done in your life. When your neshama separates from that group after 120 years, right? Your neshama will literally be a readout. You see, another neshama will simply walk over and just look at it and say, I know everything you've done. You see, why? Because it's all there, on every little scar, on every little wrinkle. Just like our age, in a certain sense, we tell in our wrinkles and all our little things and so on. You see, there is no such thing as age in the neshama. The neshama does not age. Its wrinkles and its scars are caused by its chatoim. You see, and its beauty and its strength are caused by its mitzvahs. Yes. Okay. So.
Did your mitzvahs balance out the other?
No. Yes and no. It does. But mitzvahs do not remove scars. Scars are only removed through these other processes. But mitzvahs do balance them out. They do. You see. In a sense, but they can't remove it. There are separate processes which must be associated with this. Yes.
Well, before you went into the mitzvah, you talked about disease, right? But you didn't make any connection. In other words, in no way have you said how disease takes care of a person's sin.
No, I have not. No, what it does is, no, I have not. That wasn't my goal. Just essentially,
it doesn't have a purpose.
Yes, that's the whole, how Yisurin, this is called Yisurin. You know what Yisurin means? What does the word Yisurin mean? Have you ever heard the word Yisurin? Yisurin means really, literally Yisurin means reproach. That's where the word Musa comes from, you see. To reproach someone, to reprove someone. But the way we understand it, the way it's always used, Yisurin means suffering. That's what Yisurin means. When you got a bad day, or bad things happen to you, you have undergone Yisurin. That's what it's called. That's the technical word for just bad mazel. Rotten luck and a horrible life and a horrible situation, it's called Yisurin. Every time something goes bad to you, that's called Yisurin. And the function of Yisurin is to remove scars. That's its only function. Well, it has another function, a very great tzadika. But for everyone else, normal people, it removes scars.
It just makes sense to me. Why should suffering remove scars? Because you talked about that also.
You want to understand the specific mechanism in the process.
I don't understand. Yeah, you said Gehenna too.
Gehenna does it. Yeah.
But
how it does it?
Bring it up. It doesn't.
No, I can't. I'm not. That's you. If you, I don't want to go into the mechanism of the process. That's a very, very deep thing. That's the way it's done. That's how it's done. That's how the Baruch removes scars. So you do it. Either you're doing of Gehenna or you're doing them swirls. One of the way or the other.
So why take it on another level? The Yisurin are random, aren't they?
No, they're never random. They're based on your scars. You tell the evaluation, the din, what kind of Yisurin you need. You tell it. It's not random. Chas v'shalom.
Is there what determines whether you get it here or get it now?
Well, that's the problem. That's problematic. These all things are determined by certain criteria. It depends on how many mitzvahs you've done. You see, depends on a number of things. It's a very complicated situation. The evaluating process has many situations. How it's done. There are many things that take into account. You see, what you've done here, how many mitzvahs, the types of mitzvahs, not only quantity but the quality, the types of chatoim, the quantity, the quality. You know what I mean? What you've done in the previous life, and so on. All these things are taken into account. There are many factors, and so on. We'll go into it some future day. We'll try to go into some of the reasons what determines the din, the disposition, as we should say, in the Shema. See, the Ramchal speaks about this in Derech Hashem in the third section. He speaks about this.
Well, I was going to ask a question along those lines. Seems like he said also in that section about tzaddikim that they are able to take on the sins of others and raise himself up, or the other people as well.
Yes. Tzaddikim get Yisurin even if they don't deserve it. But obviously the function of Yisurin in that case is totally different. See, if a person's got to suffer Yisurin even though he doesn't deserve because they've earned that suffering. You see, that's what it is.
That's the same thing with little kids.
Yes. If little children die, it's only because of Yesur. Now, what that Yesur is not easy to know all the time. Generally speaking, Yesur, if a small child dies in childhood or suffers, what is like, for example, retardation, a retarded child, what is that? That's pure Yesur. There's no free will there anymore. Whatever this child, this neshama in that body has to go through a almost like a non-intellectual state. The Buddha, I mean, I can go into different types of steward and what it relates to the neshama, what it does, but it's a complicated situation. You've got to know much more information to really be able to appreciate all these nuances and so on. But when a child suffers, it suffers essentially for scars on its neshama, except that the Buddha does not need it to live a full life. You see, you have to remember, for the neshama to be down in this life is not an easy thing. You see, so what the Buddha does is to be sent down the neshama at that point, and the scars are removed, and then its job is done, and that's it. Of course, the parents, that's the hara, you see, but they have to suffer this because of their own scars. So there's a dual scar, you see. When a child suffers, there's a double. No parent gets suffering from a child unless he deserves it. There's not an iota of suffering which comes on a person which is not strictly evaluated and assessed. Remember this. There's no such thing as free suffering or chaotic suffering. Okay? The Gemara says a statement which attempts to understand this. The Gemara says that in a town where suddenly there's a plague, let's say a bubonic plague, let's say in the 13th century, when I think we had the bubonic plague, right? The Great Plague, right? And it hits a town, and there's, let's say, 150 people in that town, right? And what happens? Let's say 125 people die, you see. The Gemara says, nobody will have died before this time. Don't think that because a plague hits a city, that biologically, certain number of people have to die, and certain number of people have to live, and it's random who dies not. No, it's not random. No one died before its time, which means that you could be in the midst of an absolute plague, you see, with all the microbes running around you, you will not be affected if that is not your din. No way. It's total insulation from its Yisur, you see. And that, because it is the Buddha Shalom who is in charge of Yisur, and a specific piece-by-piece basis. You see, there's no such thing as collective suffering, or group suffering, or shared suffering, and so on. Everyone gets his lot. There is a special parsha, a special section which tzaddikim have to deal with, especially the Mashiach. Because the Mashiach has to suffer in many ways for humanity. And that's a whole different ballgame. Yes.
I'm surrounded by feelings. Now I hear you. But when I go in, when I walk in there, I get decided to surround myself.
Is there another level? Well, how can you see it? If you had Ruach HaKodesh, you could look into that person and you could see the neshama. You would know why it's suffering.
But you can do it.
I don't feel distressed and wonder how to do my work, but I can see
it depends. When you go to a very great tzaddik, a very holy tzaddik, who has Ruach HaKodesh, and you say, I got big problems, give me a bracha. See, what the first thing that tzaddik does is look at you, although you don't know it. He sees the thing right away. He sees the thing, he sees the din. See? And he sees whether or not he can remove it or not. He sees whether or not it's an ability or not. And then he says, if he says he can, he will not say anything. Or he says, look, I hope. Or what, he'll use some kind of terminology, you see. I mean, I know, there's a very great tzaddik who I've had the good to be very friendly with, who has Ruach HaKodesh, and he would, and what it was is that he can see, there are people who would come, who would sit in the waiting room waiting for him, and outside, he could look when he opens the door and the person comes in, he looks at the person in the audience and he says to Gaboyim, and he says to them, you see that person, don't let him in. There's nothing I can do for him. Obviously that person has cancer, whatever the story is, I can't do a thing for him. He can actually see it. See? And even when he can do something, it's not that simple. see, not that simple. I know situations. I can begin to just go through some situations where I know a situation where a person went to a Rebbe tzaddik and they had a problem with their child, and their child was dying. And she sat down with this Rebbe tzaddik and she said, Rebbe, could you do something for my child? And this man could. He could. Because a tzaddik has access to something called a gzela. The Gemara says, a tzaddik, a very great tzaddik, a man who has devoted his life, to Kedusha and these things, can be gozer. He can decree and make God do what he wants. Not that God is forced to do it, but God says, I will follow what he says. That's an incredible relationship between God and a tzaddik. It's like unbelievable. So he can literally turn around a physical event which has no resolution and change it. So the woman said to the tzaddik, she says, my child, the doctor said my child is dying. There's no way. Forget it. It was a genetic disease of some sort. Forget it. So she said, Rebbe, could you do something? So he looked at it and said, it's very, very difficult. She said, very difficult. So she said, he said, look, but I've devoted my entire life to mitzvahs. Apparently she was a unique woman. And she said, I've devoted my entire life to mitzvahs and the chesed and stockholm. She said, I deserve this. She said, Rebbe, you're a tzaddik. Decree. Goiza. Now, no tzaddik says this. So for some reason, I don't know why, he turned around and he looked at it and he says, yes, I'm Goiza, I decree. And the child is still alive. It's an incredible thing. They can literally turn it around. Another story, also at the same time, this person came in and the person was very sad, and what happened was the person spoke to this Rebbe tzaddik, and he left very sad. So a person that I know this first-hand account told me that he was there, and he went over to the Rebbe and he said to the Rebbe, what's the matter? Why do you look so sad? So he said, because this person has been coming to me for many, many years, and it's a childless couple. I think 10 or 15 years. Childless. Whatever the reason is. And he said, I feel bad. The Rebbe said this. He said, I feel bad because I can't do anything. So suddenly he turned around and he says, no, I must do something. So he says, you're my witness. He said, I decree that within the year this person will have a child. 3 to 6 months later, the guy came back and says, my wife is expecting. You see, it's an incredible thing. They have literally that power. You see, but it's very difficult to get a tzaddik to do that. It's not simple because a tzaddik will not want to interfere with what the Shemayim does. You see, he knows when and when he does not have to interfere, and when he does interfere, he's got to pay a price. Not that simple, because you remember, when he removes the suffering of a person, that suffering really had a beneficial effect to remove what? Scars. If that suffering is gone, what happens to the scar? Did he do the person a favor or not? It's not that simple. It's much more complex than meets the eye, which means that the ability to move the scars must be done in other ways, maybe slower, in a different time, in a different setting, when the person may be able to handle it. Or maybe he takes on himself the brunt of the thing. It is not simple. It is not a simple matter. It's very, very complex. Because you're dealing with a balance and a scale, you see. Can't take something off one end of the scale and expect the other end to stay there. It goes up or down depending on what happens. If you have a weight on one end and you remove it, what happens? That thing goes up and the other thing goes down, you see. You cannot tamper. You see, the Gemara says a very interesting story, and I'll conclude with the story. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, a tremendous tzaddik, was an extremely poor man. He was so poor that it said that he lived literally from one week to another on a carrot fruit. That's how he lived. That's how he sustained himself. That's how poor he was. So Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa used to complain, why am I so poor? You see. But he used to complain, but Rabbi Hanina was an incredible tzaddik. He can literally do miracles at word. You see. So once the Baruch said to him, it must be this way. Because on your schut, the whole world stands. If I free this world, it's on your suffering. It's on your schut. That's the thing. What can Rabbi Hanina say at that point? Nothing, you see. But there's a balance. So when he said to him, you see, he said, well, but there must be some way to get around this. So the Baruch says, there is no way. You see, if I make you rich men, things are going to happen. You see, there's no way. The scale is figured out exactly. You see, if you're the tzaddik, You must understand and you must accept that. That's who you are. You see what I'm saying? You see. It's a cosmic balance. It's a world look. Everything has its cheshbon and everything has its thing. Based on evaluation. Okay, that's it. Yeah.
What happens if a person, like a kid, grows up, like, I'll give you an example, an abused child. He lives, the child goes through his own life. It starts off rotten, and the scars that are carried with it. Now, I can understand how you say that in the Shem needed Yisurin,
Remove the scars.
but this way he's just carrying the fruit.
Obviously, there are a lot of things that have to be removed. But you asked me a very deep question. What you want to understand is the internal processes of specific types of Yisura.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what it is. Why this and not that? Why does God give Yisura in this way and not that? Why is it that sometimes a person is born this way, or sometimes a person gets sick, or a person has Yisura because he loses his money, or this, or he doesn't get a job, or there's many different ways of this Yisura.
But the thing is that, I mean, if a neshama takes on an individuality when it's put into a group,
Which it does.
well, obviously it has it before, there wouldn't be anything like that unless it's
Right.
But in that sense, then it's not starting anew on the other hand.
No, it's not. It's not a new neshama. It's not a new neshama. Oh. It's not, well, because we are only one half the picture. The answer to that is that free will doesn't work. In other words, what happens is you're allowed a certain number of free will. As you build up more and more scars, then the job is shifted from mitzvahs and chatoim to getting rid of scars. Which means that there are people who are now so involved in scars that the Rebbe literally has to devote most of this person's life to getting rid of scars. That person has no free will. Because the Rebbe is not concerned with free will. The Rebbe is only concerned with free will if you're involved in the opportunity of growing. But if you've already grown the wrong way, you see, then the whole function, the whole purpose is to what? To remove or rectify the deviation. That becomes the central preoccupation. That kind of preoccupation has nothing to do with free will. Hence the person doesn't look like he has to do with free will. And he doesn't. You could see. The person's life has nothing to do with free will. Free will is a gift, but it's a responsibility, and it can be taken away.
What is it given? I mean, is it given to everybody?
At the outset. At the outset. What you do with it.
But how do you explain,
Obviously, these are the neshamas that at the outset, or through successive experiences, have developed enormous scars. Now you may say, what kind of scars can do it? Remind me next week to talk about that. I think it's important to talk about. You look at me and saying, well, this seems to be a very arbitrary system. What kind of scar, right, can do this to a person? I'll tell you that next week. I'll tell you what can do that. And you'll understand, what you will wonder is why everyone doesn't have that type of experience. Really. You see, you'll see what it is. You know what I mean? There's things that people do that are absolutely horrible. Really horrible. At a different point, not at that point, at a different point. It's a different point in its life. Because people can come back in different lifetimes. It's not at that point. Yeah, so what is challenge? You know? How have you been?
Okay.
Alright?
Yeah, I've been okay.
Look, you got this today's year? You understood it basically, yeah? Good, okay, because I was a little worried that you would, be able to figure it out. Sometimes you can break up people's information about that. Oh, yeah.
Did you ever get the tape out of that one you read changed it for?
Yes, I have it with me. Did I give you a copy? So why did I give you a copy? You talked on it. Yeah. Yes, let's see. 2 hours, yeah. 2 hours. Well, this is listen to that. I can do it. Try to get into it if you can. Yes.
I was just curious. And I was going to share this with somebody else. And she's not mistaken right now. And I really don't want to take this when I know you and I and I know it's not. So I have to say,
You don't want to give tapes. Don't cut off. Diane.
did. I
Oh,
told
she
her
did?
that.
Yeah,
I took it off.
Little just getting back that sticky marker off. But you listen to them anyway, Diane, right?
Yeah, I was absurd. He asked her.
Oh, yeah, I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, I wanted my own set, but I really just can't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Hey. Thank you. Oh, cheers.
why would you tackle the